All right, man, peace. So, brothers, I happen to catch a very interesting segment here on the CBS Morning News pertaining to the concept of happiness. And I believe that it's extremely important, especially for the so-called black man, that we have a firm grasp on what real happiness is, what it entails, and how do we acquire it. The CBS Morning News happened to have a Yale professor by the name of Laurie Santos sit down and attempt to explain to the best of her ability her worldly understanding of quote-unquote happiness. And the reason why they have to go about trying to contrive this new definition of happiness and attempt to assist other people in attaining quote-unquote happiness is because this society that we live in is almost completely Luciferian. They have tried to disavow themselves of any recognition of the Most High and replace him with the worship of themselves. And this has led to people not only being massively unhappy and dissatisfied with their own lives, what they call today quote-unquote depression, but people no longer even understand what real happiness is and the fact that it's not really a state of being. Happiness is a moment. It is an emotion. It is not a state of being. The real state of being that we're supposed to be searching after as so-called black men is an understanding of our own role on this planet in this three-dimensional world. We have to understand who we're subservient to, that being the Most High. And that is how we attain contentment and thereby happiness. That is the only way that that is going to occur. And I'm sure that many quote-unquote new age or modernized or woke so-called black men are going to disagree with that because they have managed to conflate religion with the teachings of the scriptures. So that is why so many of our brothers have fallen by the wayside. And that is just to fulfill prophecy. We have to understand that the scriptures themselves tell us what happiness is and how to go about finding it. In Proverbs 3:13, it tells us, happy is the man that findeth wisdom and the man that getteth understanding. And in Proverbs 16:20, it tells us, he that handleth a matter wisely shall find good, and whoso trusteth in the Lord, happy is he. So many so-called black men have been taught that the concept of God or the Most High or the Lord is something that is insubstantial, something that you cannot quantify or qualify. But this three-dimensional world that we live in is proof that there was a divine engineer. We're meant to be a physical personification on a lower level of what the Most High has established in the heavens, particularly through the angels. Each and every so-called black man here on the earth is meant to be a physical personification, a fleshly representation of the angels in the heavens. It's very important that brothers understand that. So yes, you can call yourself a quote-unquote God, but we're more like the sons of the actual God. So that makes us gods in the fleshly form, and that means that we have to carry out our duties and our roles to the best of our abilities. We're never going to be perfect because to be in the flesh is to be imperfect. But that is the role of the so-called black man here on the earth, and that is the only way that we're going to find true happiness, because that's the only way that order is going to be reestablished in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
All right. Does winning $1 million automatically make you happier? Professor Laurie Santos explores what science reveals about happiness and how our brains adapt to it. She created the most popular class offered at Yale University called...
Now, I wonder why her class is the most popular class at Yale University. Yale University is an Ivy League institution, and yet her class on happiness is overflooding with students. What should that tell you about the incoming classes that are attending Yale University? They are unbelievably unhappy. Keep in mind that the graduates from these Ivy League institutions like Yale and Harvard and Princeton, etc., are going to become the future leaders of America and the world. So if they're not happy at 18 years old, you know that they're not going to be happy at 30, 35 years old when there's so much pressure on them. That's how we know, especially as so-called black men, we don't have to look to these other demographics and to these other people with these illustrious titles as inspirations or as leaders. We have to understand that each and every one of us are leaders, starting in our households.
Psychology and the good life. And in her podcast, The Happiness Lab, she interviews notable guests like figure skater Michelle Kwan, David Byrne from the Talking Heads, Coach Bob Bowman, and veteran and actor J.R. Martinez. Santos talks to them about their quest to find happiness and looks at the data behind their decisions. Professor, good morning.
Thanks for having me.
So you created the most popular class ever at Yale University.
The most popular class ever at Yale University, and I guarantee you this broad is not happy. I promise you that. She is not happy. As a matter of fact, there's no such thing as a so-called happy woman. all right? That's just someone who's going through certain bouts. A woman who is happy is like someone who has the hiccups. It's going to come and it's going to go. You just have to understand how to deal with that. True happiness comes with the reinstitution of order. This society is moving according to a vibration of chaos.
Make you happy?
It did. It made me very humble. It came with a lot of logistical problems that didn't make me so happy, but it was great.
And now this podcast is going to be a path to happiness for the rest of us? How so?
That's right. I mean, the idea is not everybody's going to take a Yale class. You know, not everybody has the SATs to get into Yale, but everybody's focused on happiness. And so we wanted to make all these insights available to...
I wouldn't say that everyone is truly focused on happiness. I would say that everyone is focused on self-worship. All people are trying to find their own independent pathway towards quote-unquote happiness when the pathway was laid out a very long time ago. And I'm talking to you so-called black men. Because the so-called black man is the most neglected demographic of all strata of people here on the planet Earth. You're the most disregarded, and you're the demographic that people care the least about when it comes to your quote-unquote happiness. And you know why? It's because they know that they don't have the power to empower the so-called black man. The only battery that's going to empower us is the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the Most High. That's it. We cannot gain empowerment through the flesh in this three-dimensional world. We have to get it from the spirit. Because once again, the so-called black man is meant to be the physical personification of the angels in the heavens. That's what the so-called black man is supposed to be when he's in his right mind.
One of the first ones was about winning the lottery. Yeah, because everybody thinks if I could just win the lottery,
And when I say the so-called black man, I'm talking about of the captivity. I'm talking about you brothers in North, Central, and South America who are considered so-called black. Okay?
just do it, it would make me happy. You highlight a guy who won and then ended up taking his own life.
Right, but did that person who won the lottery really take his own life, or did something happen there? And this is a storyline or a narrative that the media tends to avoid, which is something that Gayle King just alluded to. Many of these lottery winners end up coming up dead. So I'm not quite sure if this is a government program that's meant to some way find a way to take the money back if someone were fortunate enough, quote unquote, fortunate enough to win the lottery, which is just numerology based in the Kabbalah, a modern day manifestation of some of the sorcery of ancient Kemet and Babylon. But either way, there's certainly something going on with that entire issue that we'll probably have to broach in another video. That's certainly a video for another day. But kudos to Gayle King for bringing that up, because there are many so-called lottery winners who end up dead. And I'm talking about the people who win in the 9 figures.
Because you think money, and I only hear rich people say this though, money doesn't make you happy. But there is research and science to back that up.
Well, the reason why rich people state that money doesn't make them happy is because now they have far more responsibilities and many more worries in how to maintain the money that they're getting, because they're living comparatively. And living according to the concept of comparison is truly the thief of joy. When you're always looking at the next man and comparing yourself to him, he has a nicer car than me, he has a prettier woman than me, that's the spirit of envy. That's the spirit of covetousness. You start to seek after what that man has. Next thing you know, you're not living your life to improve yourself, you're living your life to outdo that man. That's one of the key components of happiness. That's why, once again, it has to be funneled through the knowledge of the scriptures. That's how we regain that connection to the Most High, so that we become self-validated and no longer concerned about how much better we look than the next person. So many people are unhappy. Look at the so-called black woman. Why does she dress like that with a wig on top of her head that everyone knows is a wig? They're not fooling anyone. But they're trying to live in juxtaposition to the standards of beauty that were established according to the white woman as a paragon of beauty. They don't want to admit that. They try to project their infatuation with the white woman on white women, talking about cultural appropriation and all of that stuff. But for the most part, they're dwelling in their own minds, as well as in the minds of the so-called white woman, in a mutually toxic symbiotic relationship, where both the Caucasian woman and the so-called black woman are trying to copy off of one another, trying to outdo one another, and they're both extremely, quote-unquote, unhappy.
Right, so researchers have been looking at this, right, trying to figure out at what point in your salary do you kind of hit the point that more money won't make you happy. And so 2 Nobel Prize-winning economists looked at this. They kind of measured a bunch of different measures of well-being. So how stressed people feel, how much positive emotion people had, and they plotted that across your salary. And what they find is that at low incomes, yeah, more money makes you happy. If you jump from $10,000 in the US to 20, you're going to be less stressed.
It's not so much the money that makes people happier, it's what the money represents, which is access to things that they enjoy. The ability to seek out pleasure. When you're making a lot of money, the money represents a nicer car, nicer shoes, nicer women, etc. Even the scriptures tell us that money answers all things. But we know that it also tells us that the love of money is the root of all evil, because now it becomes a bloodlust. Now you're willing to sacrifice things, including your own soul, just to gain a higher level of financial status. Not financial stability, but financial status. You're already stable, but once again, you're just trying to justify yourself to other people. You're trying to justify yourself to the camera. You're trying to justify yourself to women. Very, very dangerous trying to justify or validate yourself to women. As a man, there are responsibilities that we're going to have in a relationship. But if you decide as a man that you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to validate yourself or seek the approval of the woman, you're never really going to be a man. And eventually the woman is going to leave you anyway.
People that make 30 think if they make 50 they'll be okay.
Yeah.
People
That's right.
that make 100 think if they make 250 they'll be okay. But the real number is what they found?
The real number seems to be around 75K. Like in all these measures, you just kind of level off, which is really surprising to most people.
So why do billionaires want even more money?
Billionaires don't really want more money. They want to keep winning. By the time someone becomes a billionaire, it's normally because they have an unbelievable competitive drive. They're seeking to constantly conquer new terrain. That's normally the mindset of a billionaire. They're inventors, they're creators. So they're coming up with new ideas every day, and they're trying to see what new terrain they can reign over. Okay, I'm great in the automobile market. Now I want to take over the TV world. Now I want to enter into radio, things like that. That's the mind of a billionaire. I don't quite think that it's about money with them as much as competition.
We make the generalization, when we don't have that much money, when you make more, you're like, oh, all of a sudden it feels good. And then when you're rich, you're like, I'm still not happy. And you're like, it just must not be enough.
Why is it 75 though? I thought that was an interesting number, not even 100. Why is it?
Probably because of 75K, those are normally going to be people who are living within their means. There's a big difference mentally between someone making 75 and 80K and someone making 100K. Just mentally or psychologically. Someone who's making 100K might start to think that they can afford things that they really cannot afford. Someone making 75K normally is still trying to live within their means.
That's just what the empirical data bear out. But I think
Frustrating thing is it's like just 10,000 above the median income in the U.S. So another interesting finding is Olympic medalists, if they're third, 2 away from first, they're happier actually long term than the second place finisher. Why?
I think this
Depends on who you're talking about. Floyd Mayweather won the bronze medal in 1996, or I should say received the bronze medal in 1996, but he thought that he should have gotten gold because he believed that he was robbed.
finisher has a salient comparison that makes them feel bad. They almost got gold. They were 0.2 seconds away. Whereas the bronze medalist is like, I almost wasn't even up here.
I almost lost
Yes.
I
completely.
feel great.
You say our minds lie to us when it comes to happiness. What do you mean?
I mean,
In order for people to survive, they have to have coping mechanisms. That's obvious. You're going to go through trauma in your life. So in order for you to continue moving forward, the Most High has built in certain fail-safes within our cognitive functionality, where we will compartmentalize traumatic or damaging memories for the sake of us still being relatively functional in our everyday lives. That's why you have people who say, I have a repressed memory that came to the forefront. I never realized that such and such molested me, or I never realized that I was physically abused when I was 3 years old. Things of that nature. That's how the human brain was built, so that we can continue to move forward.
all these strong intuitions about what will make us happier. More money, that'll make me happy. Getting a promotion, that'll make me happy. But then you look at people who get that, and they're not happy.
Because they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the acclaim of others. That's the bottom line. And that's why I always tell the so-called black man that if he can, he should try to extricate himself from corporate America. I mean, if you enjoy that atmosphere, then that's you. Then, of course, you stay there. But I don't believe that it's built or configured for the so-called black man, especially with the mental issues that so many brothers have. They need to become more comfortable with becoming their own boss, being their own administrator. So if you have a dream or a focus or a vision, you should pursue it, because it's going to teach you a lot about yourself.
The podcast touches on what you call the psychological immune system. What is that exactly?
That's one of the reasons that we're just more resilient than we think. You know, when bad things happen, someone breaks up for you, all of a sudden, they weren't good enough for me. You know, you lose some money in the lottery, like, I didn't need it anyway. This immune system makes us feel good, even when bad things happen. We just don't realize we have it.
So
I think that people understand that many of the issues that transpire in their lives are things that they can move beyond, especially in today's day and age, where everyone is taught once again that you're supposed to go out into the business world and become a cog in the machine. So that's what people are focused on. Ancillary issues like relationships and things like that, normally people are able to bounce back from those things a little bit better because they're accustomed to funding their own lifestyle. 50, 60 years ago, a woman could not allow herself to sabotage her relationship with her man or with her husband like she can today because she had no income coming in. Nowadays, the way that people have all been pushed into the corporate workspace or have been programmed to work for themselves in some way, shape, or form, it allows collateral damage to not be so damaging as it used to be.
be happier, Professor Santos.
Well, stop focusing on the things that don't matter, money, accolades, and so on.
Well, money actually does matter, because if you don't have money, you cannot purchase products. If you cannot purchase products, you cannot keep living. So money is always going to be a priority. But we should not idolize money. We should not idolize status. Once again, brothers get into trouble when they idolize things. People, women, cars, money, access. We idolize these things. And that shows that we're not being self-defined. If you're not self-defined, it will be far easier to manipulate you because people understand what you're lusting after. Once people understand what you're lusting after, then they're going to dangle it in front of your face, but you're going to have to give them something in order to receive that thing that you think you want so badly. And you're going to find that the thing that you gave up in exchange for what you thought you wanted was far more valuable than what you received. The only thing that really matters is that we maintain our dignity as men. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have to compromise in life. We all have to compromise in life. We're all human beings. None of us are perfect. Shit's going to happen. But at the end of the day, what is life really about? As you get older, you realize that you become closer and closer to the Most High because your level of understanding and wisdom broadens. It's not so much about momentary gratification and satisfaction anymore. And that's what we have to guide each other through. That's how we're able to disassociate ourselves from a lot of the traumatic instances that occurred earlier in our lives. And that's how we become more functional and more helpful to one another and more beneficial to our families. As a man, if you're not beneficial to your family, what is the point of you being here?
Focusing on the things that do. Make time for social connection. Take time to just be present. Experience gratitude. Those are the things that really matter.
What really matters is that the so-called black man makes sure that he restores his relationship with the Most High. Okay? Once again, I'm sure that I'm going to alienate certain Luciferian cats that's on my channel who are quote-unquote woke. I really don't give a shit. I know for a fact you don't have any answers as a human being. Human beings never have real answers. All the real answers are spiritually inspired. Always. And I'm talking about from the Most High. I'm not talking about from your ego.
Waiting in line can be a happy experience.
Yeah, it's another...
You lost me on that.
Yeah.
Also, 7,000 hours of our life spent waiting in line.
Let me rewind this back a little bit because that's a bunch of new age bullshit they put on the screen there. It says keys to happiness: kindness, meditation, gratitude, exercise, sleep. Brothers, all these things combined are supposed to be a replacement for your true understanding of what your role is in this three-dimensional world, what we call Earth. They're desperate to get you to marginalize the concept of God. They want you to consider yourself as your own God because Satan considers you as a God. Remember when Adam and Eve first partook of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, it states that they became as gods, meaning they understood that their true purpose on the earth under the inspiration of Satan was to worship themselves, or under the inspiration of the serpent was to worship themselves. That is what dragon energy or Luciferianism is really all about. It's the science of worshiping yourself. So when these cats who are 5%ers ramble on and on about how the black man is God and they're their own God and all this other stuff, it's really Luciferianism. And most of these other doctrines revolve around Luciferianism, or the veneration of the dragon or serpent energy, the Kundalini effect.
It's another.
You lost me on that.
Yeah.
Also, 7,000 hours of our life spent waiting in line.
Yeah, well, it's an opportunity cost because we could be spending that time better. Sometimes we're kind of scrolling our Instagram feed, not feeling good, but we could talk to the person next to us.
Yeah.
Turns out that
Do they want to talk to us, Laurie?
It depends, Gail. They might not find you attractive. If they do find you attractive, then maybe they'll want to talk to you. It also depends on how annoying you are. Let's keep in mind that 99 times out of 100, if an attractive woman tries to talk to a man, he's going to assume that she wants his number or that she wants to engage in some type of romantic scenario. That's just the nature of men. There are very few men who just want to have conversations based on general principles.
I suggest they do. There's a researcher, Nick Epley, who looked at this, and he tested afterwards, does the person you're talking to feel better? And he finds that, in fact, they do.
Oh, that's interesting. What happens? What about when things don't go according to plan?
This is another case where I think we
That's called life, bro.
cast that everything's going to be terrible. But in practice, that psychological immune system you mentioned, it kicks in. It makes us feel better than we expect. And that means that things aren't going to, our circumstances aren't going to affect us as much as we often think.
Did you see Laurie?
Well, I don't think your circumstances affect you as much as you think if you're thinking negatively. If you think positive, then you can change your circumstances to something that's going to benefit you.
Find somewhere, say hello.
Right. Strike up a conversation.
All right, Laurie Santos, thanks so much for being with us. The Happiness Lab podcast is out today.
Yes, Laurie Santos, thank you for all that bullshit that you were just spewing. Like I've been telling you brothers for a while, every time that you see a psychiatrist or a psychologist on most of these morning news telecasts, whether it's CBS, NBC, or ABC, they prefer that it be a woman because they want the woman or the female to be the new face of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, especially on the news, particularly in the morning when people are getting ready for work. They want them to become accustomed to a female face or a female voice having the answers. But anyway, once again, what is the answer to happiness? We have to keep it simple. Happiness is always in servitude of something that is never going to change. That's when you get gratification. The Most High is never going to change. That is going to be the stability that we have when you lose your job, when your woman decides that she doesn't want to be with you anymore, when one of the members of your immediate family pass away. That's going to be our only source of stability. That's it. You can try to act as if you have all the answers. You could still be a God here on the earth, brother, as long as you understand that there's a God in the heavens. You could still be all that. But to claim that, that you're going to be the be-all, end-all, absolutely not. And that mentality is being pushed on the masses because they're going to use that mentality against you when they reveal that the true source and fountain of this mentality or this stance that you are your own God is Luciferianism. When they reveal to you that the horn God, the mother goddess, and the divine child are where you get many of the elements of your beliefs from, you're going to be forced to bow down to that. But anyway, peace.